I'm Jim Czek.
And I'm Renee Merrifield.
We're here with Beyond the Ballot, and wow, like the Carney Cabinet, off to a rocky, I don't even say like rocky start. Like, wow. They didn't get to speak during the election, but I guess that shows you why they shouldn't be speaking.
Well, and you know what? There was a lot of talk, a lot of controversy, a lot of questions, a lot of wondering about what Carney would do, how he would differentiate himself from Trudeau, and what the cabinet would look like. Seeing as many old faces was a real surprise to a lot, especially considering some of the failures that some of those former ministers had endured. And then when you see where things have gone to with basically 13 new cabinet ministers, all brand new rookie MPs. Luckily, most of them were not the ones that were speaking, unmuzzled, as it were, and really confusing the public, saying very different messages than what the general public had heard from Carney himself, literally in some cases that morning. The difference between, let's say, what Carney was saying about housing and what Gregor Robertson was saying about housing was very confusing to the public, which one was right, or what Guilbeault was saying about pipelines and what Carney was saying about natural energy. Again, very confusing messages and not a great way to start, for a cabinet.
Yeah, he did that sit-down interview with Vassie Capellas of CTV, and she asked the question quite a few times on the cabinet. Same faces, same front bench, really, the same front bench. A little bit of shuffling, and he was trying to sell it that they were all in different roles, that made a difference. And most of them, obviously Sean Fraser failed as the immigration minister, failed as housing minister, and then, given the justice minister, and then he says that he's not even really going to come to the office. He's going to work from home for the most part. So,
well, and that is like so disrespectful to the general public and to his constituents who voted him to be a representative in Parliament, and to say that he was going to do most of his meetings via Zoom or, literally via Zoom or Teams was very, I think, disrespectful to the role. And shows a lack of commitment to really showing up for his constituents. The one that I would say I'm most excited about that hasn't really spoken yet would be Tim Hodgson. He was the former CEO of Goldman Sachs Canada, obviously a very inner circle Carney affiliate, and definitely someone that I was excited about to see run as an MP, and then someone that he had put in the cabinet, which I thought was very strategic. He is under the natural resource and energy sector. Looking forward to seeing what he can do, but not a whole lot if all he's going to do is not have any pipelines.
Yeah, and that was the one that was most troubling to me is, like all the stuff, even Jean Chrétien saying we're going to build pipelines, and then Carney kind of like being evasive on the pipeline, and then Stephen Guilbeault coming out and saying that the TMX is at 40% capacity, which is not true. It's
not
like
true.
At 80. And then Stephen Guilbeault saying that we're at peak oil and nobody even wants oil. You know how many times throughout the last 50 years people have said we're at peak oil? And obviously Stephen Guilbeault has a crystal ball that nobody else has, because every other country wants to buy oil and gas. And Stephen Guilbeault said nobody wants it, and why would we build pipelines?
Yeah, it's a very naive statement. It's also a misleading statement, and I think that it was corrected immediately. And again, it shows the real discrepancy and disparity and distance that is between, let's say, Alberta and the rest of the country, or Alberta and Saskatchewan and the rest of the country. We definitely don't want a Brexit kind of a scenario here, and we're certainly not looking.
Crisis, yeah.
Yeah, but we have a unity crisis, and the last thing we need is a bunch of ministers wandering around saying different things. And I think that it was confusing. I think it was wrong. I think that he should not have spoken the way he did. He was speaking about something that is not even his portfolio anymore. But I think we need to be very cautious, because one of the difficulties that Carney was going to have in going to the middle is that he has a far left caucus, not just cabinet, but caucus. And, what Guilbeault said in that interview was simply that there's a lot of caucus members who believe in the same way that he does. And that's going to be a difficult one for Carney to navigate through in these waters, especially with his leadership style, which is much more authoritarian. If he can do it, that's awesome. But if he cannot, the knives are gonna come out. Even the best caucus, the hero status of him winning the election will fade, and you're going to see a very different caucus emerge, and one that will continue on these very, very confusing messages.
And then the other one, then we're going to play a little clip here from Pierre Poilievre. The one that really surprised me is that when the finance minister Champagne said there will be no budget, and that they're doing the work that Canadians want, giving the tax cut, and that's all they had time for. I'm just like, no, your budget was prepared. You went at Pierre Poilievre and said he doesn't have a plan. You said you have a plan. You have a plan, so show Canadians the plan. Let's play this clip here from Pierre Poilievre, though, first.
A budget determines and informs Canadians of the size of the debt and the deficit, of the future interest rate and inflation costs, of the tax policies that determine whether companies hire or fire employees, of the laws that allow us to or block us from building major infrastructure projects that will create jobs and make us more independent from the Americans who are threatening us with tariffs. Now, Mr. Carney said during the election campaign that he had a plan, and he took great delight in saying that a slogan is not a plan. Well, a budget is a plan. And if he does indeed have a plan, if he does know what he's doing, then he would introduce a budget so that Canadians know exactly what the finances are. We were very disappointed yesterday to hear that he has no budget plan for this year. This makes it the longest period without a budget since the 60s, the first time there has not been a budget outside of COVID in over 20 years. Extremely unusual. It'll send a bad signal to investors and ratings agencies, and a lot of people will wonder what the Liberal government is hiding about our finances. And so we're here with solutions. I'm proposing offering the Prime Minister to sit down with him and propose conservative solutions that we hope that he will steal. I want him to steal our best ideas. That includes cutting the bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, and other wasteful spending to bring down deficits, inflation, and taxes. We want a real income tax cut that rewards hard work, axe the federal sales tax on new homes to promote more building and lower costs, and stand up against American tariffs with lower taxes on Canadian investment and by repealing all of the anti-energy policies like C-69, C-48, the energy cap, the electric vehicle mandate, and unleashing our resources so that we can become the richest country in the world. Now, these are ideas that concern.
Well, there you go. A lot of the banks have come out too now and saying, like, where's the budget? And I've challenged a bunch of CPAs too. Like, they should be screaming from the rooftops. Where's the budget? Like, this is ridiculous. Carney did campaign saying that he had a plan and he had a budget, and that Poilievre didn't have a plan. So then show Canadians the plan.
Yeah, and that's very accurate. We are seeing from a lot of the economists, a lot of the banks, and obviously from opposition leader Pierre Poilievre there, that a plan is a budget. And for Carney to not produce a budget and not plan on producing a budget and have nothing more than a fiscal update in the fall, I think is a very dangerous position for him to rely on. The other thing that really bothers me about that, just coming from being a citizen of Canada, is that it also really is hard to hold a government accountable if you don't have a budget. Where are the overspends? Where are the underspends? How do I, evaluate what you're doing and how you're doing it? And without that budget, that really precludes that. He can continue to say, well, we've spent this much money, but that's because it was started by Trudeau. We just didn't really have time. This is he could take whatever time he wants to right now and really sit down and start and put time towards that. And instead, he's choosing not to. I think that is a really odd strategic choice. And I think one that in the end is going to hurt us as the Canadian population on the world stage, and certainly with investors who don't know where we're going yet. And to communicate that, no, we're going in a positive economic direction, and that's why everyone has these economic portfolios, and every quadrant of the country is covered with these economic portfolios. the reality is economic portfolios that are in juxtaposition to what other ministers are saying, a caucus that's, appears to be in juxtaposition to what Carney is saying. So it's a very, very difficult message to read right now and a very difficult vision to see.
Especially that he's a finance guy. This is where, as a finance guy, he should know paramount is the budget if you're running a corporation. Or would you let somebody run your corporation? As you are running the largest corporation in Canada, you're running Canada, and you're a finance guy, he has a budget. He wouldn't do it without a budget. So show it to us. Show it to Canadians. And then Champagne basically gaslighting Canadians on there with Vasi Capellas, basically saying, Canadians just want a tax cut. They don't really care about a budget. That is so that's so COVID era stuff. That's this gaslighting that seems to continue. That's what I mean. Same team, same people, same garbage.
Yeah. And, we've got 50% of that population. That number's going up. It used to be in the 40s. Now it's in the 50s. 50% of the population is, $250 away from not making ends meet every single month. The tax cut that we saw very, very disingenuously and very performatively being signed.
Oh, we're going to show you a clip of that.
Carney, you're going to show a clip in just 1 second. But when that performative, exercise was done, basically that is a drop in the bucket compared to what Canadians need right now. Canadians are not moving in a good direction, and personal finances are strapped. A one-time $800 tax break on average is not going to make a difference in the grand scheme of things. We need better jobs. We need a resource sector firing on all cylinders, and most of the economists are saying that as well.
So to me, it's if you want to show change and if you want to show you're in a different direction, repeal Bill C-69, Bill C-48, and repeal Bill C-18, because we need a free and independent press to hold power accountable. We can't have press that is actually living off the Liberal government and won't hold them accountable. We need those three things right now.
Right now. Absolutely, unequivocally. And we need the EV mandate gone.
And the EV mandate, and I say that, me and Ian talk about that every day. If they don't drop the EV mandate, there is no auto sector to defend. There is none. There is none. And if you think about it, the number one sector in Canada, by far, by a long shot, is our oil and gas or an LNG. That is by far the biggest industry in Canada. And you had Stephen Guilbeault say that we don't need oil and gas, and it's we're peak oil and nobody wants to buy it. That's basically what he said. So that's our number one sector. And if you say auto sector is way down there, but it's one of our bigger sectors, contributing a couple $1 billion to ours, I can't remember, 10 billion or something like that. It's pretty big though. And if they don't drop the EV mandate, there will be no automobile sector. So two of our bigger sectors, they're in the way. They're absolutely in the way of both those sectors.
And have been threatened in the last 24 hours since the cabinet was sworn in. The other thing I'd like to mention is that during the election, Reuters actually came out with the story about Honda stopping their plant. That was denied, and little wonder that now it comes out as being, that was actually true. The reality is we have these sectors that are dying and that are dying under this government, and so far, they're not seeing anything that's increasing their confidence level, and we're not seeing anything that's changing Trump's mind on the tariffs. It was odd. Trump came out with that messaging at the end of last week, saying, there's going to be this big announcement between Canada and the U.S. And it was odd telegraphing, and nothing came of it. And in the end, I'm thinking, okay, was that Trump smoke and mirrors, or did something fall apart at the end, or is he just trying to get into our headlines and into our heads again? I'm not sure which of those it is. But regardless of what it is, the reality is we have not seen any movement on that file in these last weeks, other than, for one trip down there. And I have to say that one trip down there, if anyone has read Trump's book, The Art of the Deal, basically, he basically took the 4 points out of that book and commanded that meeting as a very, very strategic negotiation where, he controlled the narrative. He kept, repeating what he wanted, and basically, had Carney agreeing to almost everything that he was saying, which the big point that Trump drove home to Canadians was, I won that election for you. You owe me.
That message was loud and clear. Other than that, we got nothing out of it, other than I think Carney got to speak for a couple minutes. And then even when he said Canada's not for sale, never will be, and Trump said never say never. And it wasn't a very productive meeting. Obviously the state-funded media portrayed it as this big success.
Yeah, and I was interesting to see how the political pundits on both sides were really reading that meeting very differently. Some were saying, no, Carney didn't give an inch, and then others were like, oh my goodness, he just sat there. So for me, the actual meeting was less important than the actions or the outcomes. That's how I'm gonna really gauge how effective our leader was. And in this particular case, there were zero outcomes. There was nothing that was actually gained by his visit down there. And in fact, if anything, then he was insulting the president again, or not even the president, but the king of England, by saying, he shouldn't have invited him for 2 state dinners. And so again, it's like, oh man, stop playing foul grapes and just start firing our economy back up and getting us other dance partners, and forget about Trump and just leave him alone and start working on really getting us unhooked from that.
You obviously watched that interview, I think it was Sky News, the British interview, when they actually it was actually, if Canadian journalists did that during the election, he probably wouldn't be prime minister. That was not a great interview, but it was a lot tougher than he would get from a Canadian journalist. And like when they said to him, or she said to him, America's, you rely on American military, and he said, well, they rely on us. And he said, what, with your tiny military and your broken equipment, right? Just like the world knows that we've neglected our military. The world knows that. Just the Liberal government doesn't know that, or doesn't want to admit to that.
Yeah. And on that note, I mean, I was excited to see that we have, someone on the cabinet that's local representative. So Stephen Fuhr, I mean, God bless him for running again after his defeat against Tracy Gray the election before. But I was excited to see him back in, or not back in, but into a cabinet position. My biggest concern is that he rallied so hard against the F-35s, and now he's the head of procurement for the national defense. So I do hope that maybe there's a different mandate from a different leader, and that we can see some different action. But it was really good to see him go on record again saying that C-18 should be repealed, and that we should see a really free media. And hopefully he will be advocating for that, because I think that hit the smaller communities harder than some of the larger communities with the larger media that's present.
It's been devastating for local independent media for sure, and I can attest to that. And he has said that he's going to do something about it, so that's great. Hopefully he can get the ear of Mark Carney. And almost everybody to a person admits, like when they were running in our local ridings here, that it was a terrible thing and it's had unintended consequences. And it would be so easy to fix. And the thing is, Pierre Poilievre said he would fix it. So we're seeing all those things that Pierre Poilievre said he would have done right away. And now he's saying, just steal my ideas and just get some of this stuff in play. We're going to play this clip here, though, from Doug Ford, who, let's play this clip first, and then we'll comment on it.
Yesterday, in an interview with Vashi Kapelos, Prime Minister Carney said he's open to making changes at the federal level on projects to make sure that they move forward, and that could include on Bill C-69. Can you talk about what that would mean for nation building and national unity?
Well, it just can't be, thank you for the question, first of all, but it just can't be business as usual. We have to move forward. We got elected on a strong mandate, and we have to compete against, not just around the world, but compete against President Trump and his tariffs. And the only way we can do that is if we get rid of C-69. It doesn't allow all of us across the country to move forward in a rapid speed. And I really appreciate what Prime Minister Carney mentioned yesterday. I personally feel he's going to move quick, but we all have to move quick, all the premiers, to get our economy going, make sure we give certainty to everyone across the country, not just our individual provinces and territories. But I thought it was a real positive interview yesterday, at least what I heard. I'll pass it over to Wab if you want to give your thoughts on some of it.
So there you go, Doug Ford and Danielle Smith coming out and saying that she appreciated those comments. But I think if you really want Bill 69 approved, you've supported the wrong party there, Mr. Ford.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting to hear him say, like, we were elected on a strongman. I was like, okay, we know who we voted for now. So that was an interesting tell there. But I think he's trying to appeal to his base. He's trying to get some of that conservative energy going back. And I will say that one of the things that makes a really great leader in my mind and differentiates them from politicians is that they are willing to let their ideas be stolen. They are willing to just allow it to go to the better of the constituents and the citizens. And so I think that it was a strong message that Pierre sent, saying, hey, look, steal my ideas, take them all, take every last one of them, because in the end, it's going to benefit Canadians. And the last strong Liberal leader that did that was Chrétien. Chrétien really assembled a very, very strong table of different parties, of different leaders, and then took the best ideas and really revolutionized Canada in the late 90s. I think that's what we need here. We are desperate to get back on our feet. We are desperate to become that world power. And the only way we're going to do it is to really take the best ideas, and some of those best ideas were to get our natural resource sector moving forward again.
Yeah, to me, if he really wants to do in the best interest of Canada, he needs to sit down with Pierre Poilievre and the two of them figure out a way, the best course for Canada. That would be an unselfish way to do it, and say, what can we do to get Canada moving again? Because our biggest asset that we have, and you and I talk about this all the time, our biggest asset is obviously our natural resources. And if you have ministers like Guilbeault and Quebec trying to kibosh that, it really puts us in a bad spot. And the auto sector, which they're fighting for, is it's fighting against this EV mandate as well. And the auto sector is in real trouble in Canada. Like, there's boardroom meetings going on right now, I can tell you. I guarantee it, in Ford and Stellantis and GM, talking about how they can move their production back to the United States with this EV mandate.
That was a headline yesterday that Honda is moving it to the U.S. I mean, we're seeing that already.
Stellantis has already done some stuff, and Ford and GM have already. Ford has said, Jim Farley has said, we have excess capacity in the United States.
Well, yeah, and they've shut down the plant for how long now? It's been a year or two. Like, we're not looking at any really good news in that sector. So the other thing is that Carney would stay in power longer. If he puts laws forward that the Conservative government would vote for, he's going to stay in power longer. And I mean, that would be a smart move. So, I don't think there's a coalition possible here. That's not, I don't think, on the table. I don't think anyone would be super impressed with that. But I think that the best ideas do come from a government that's willing to take them from any side of the table. And I think that it would benefit Carney very much to start doing that very quickly.
We got one last clip here to show. Let's play this clip here, and then we'll chat about it. I think that got cut off a little bit, but it basically showed the two, like the same style. I don't know why why we're trying to mimic Donald Trump. Like, if you're going to do it, at least get a Sharpie and do a big signature and then show off the signature. Come on.
This was really offensive to me. Number one, because I don't think Canadians want Trump, or the vast majority do not. And I would say that even those that are for what Trump is bringing or for what Trump is doing, I mean, I've heard people say, I just want to bully like Trump is for us in Canada here. Like, so even if those, that are, that can handle Trump and like him, they don't want those behaviors. They don't want the bad part of Trump. They don't want to see the negative side of him. And this particular act was so brutal. The reality is that, we don't have executive orders in that way. We don't sign them like that. That's not what happens. And so that was just pure performative politics at its finest, and just really offensive to the Canadian public. Bring in the law, fine. That's how we do things here, and then it'll get debated on Parliament's floor.
And we don't do like they do in the Oval Office, where they have a bunch of SEALs there clapping at the end of it when he slams down the book, and then like they all clap. And they did. It was basically like a really bad ripoff of the Donald Trump signing. Like it wasn't even like if you're gonna do it to another level. Don't do it at like a really cheesy kind of like grimy level that just makes it look really. Like, I mean, they must be just killing themselves in the Oval Office when they watch that. They must be just rolling around laughing their heads off.
And again, who does it serve? It serves Trump. I mean, it just only accentuates. I mean, the best form of flattery is to imitate him. And I think that was the most absurd imitation, and was thoroughly staged and really not what the Canadian public wants to see. And it's bad when CBC is actually criticizing you, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, CBC was all over that, going, "What is this?" And this is just not.
Well, I mean, it's so bad. And here's the thing, though. And they talk about he ran on basically anti-Trump, but he has so many Trumpian kind of attributes, like the way he attacks media when they do interviews, like that interview with Vasi Kapelas was, again, with a female reporter, and very disrespectful. Again, it was just, he does not like to be challenged. He's very disrespectful, like Trump is very disrespectful to reporters. And here it is, this performative acts, like, and then the SEALs in the room are clapping, like. They should know what Canadian tradition is. Why are they putting up with it? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Why are they putting up with it? Because they're a new cabinet. That's why. And cabinet is told, and cabinet does not step out of line. Cabinet votes in line with party. Like, there are no ifs, ands, or buts. So what was really surprising to me was that he had not briefed his cabinet ministers to not speak about things that they should not, that they were not.
I was just going to say that. What was Guilbeault doing out in the hallway there?
Totally. So it's like they were all clapping when it was like being signed, and then they walked out into the hallway or in front of the building and basically like let all hell break loose. So
maybe they were clapping on their ears so they couldn't hear what was going on, because like Guilbeault said that stuff, which was just ludicrous against what, and I know that Carney kind of couches when he talks about oil and gas, like he kind of like plays it with carbon and stuff like that. But, Guilbeault came out basically saying there will be no pipeline. There's no need for a pipeline. Nobody's going to buy oil and gas, which is completely contrary to what, Canadians are expecting right now.
And likewise, with the housing file, I mean, there were so many different messages that were being, we're going to cut bureaucracy. No, we need DCCs because, the city needs to get their fair share. And it's like, oh my goodness, these are the most absurd arguments ever. And DCCs are not created. And if you know the legislation, you know that they are not created for a city to get their fair share. They're not created from profits, and they lead to a housing affordability crisis that we are in today. So, I mean, the ignorance of these new cabinet ministers was pretty on display and very, very apparent, and really did not bode well. I mean, yeah, it did not bode well at all.
I didn't think anybody could do a worse job with foreign policy than Melanie Joly, but then Anita Anand stood up and said, I can do that. And her comments there.
We'd ostracize the entire Jewish population of Canada. I mean, it was just so. I mean, we can switch gears a little bit. And you look at the trip to the Middle East, and I know they won't admit it, but even CNN and the other networks that typically left leaning, the coverage of Donald Trump has been very favorable with his trip to the Middle East there, which looks like he lifted sanctions with Syria. Sounds like they're close to a deal with Iran. Like the welcoming in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates, that he's trying to make peace and make, what's the slogan he's using down there is make money, not war. And he's offering that to all of the Middle East and say, let's move on. He said and he blamed the Americans too. He said all the neocons that came here, and, they tried to interfere with these communities and interject their own things and policies and thoughts that didn't work. But you look at the success of Saudi Arabia and that, let the people do their own work. And there were some very powerful speeches that were had there. Yeah, there were. I mean, I'm a little bit apprehensive. I probably don't share as much gusto about the peace talks that are happening right now. Trump is wading into a very, very volatile and very, very lengthy war that's been waged. He's really, really separating himself from some of the allies that he's had in the past, by lifting the sanctions and by doing certain things. He's being hailed as a hero down there, but that only lasts for so long. I mean, they have very, very short memories there. So, I'm cautiously optimistic, but I do think that there's a lot of work that has to be done, and I hope that work's been done behind the scenes before his arrival.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of really smart people. But the other thing that I want to stress in that trip is where Canada's missing in that trip. But like some of the stuff that's happening there, and this is where Canada's alienated some of these people. On that trip is like the CEO of Boeing, the CEO of General Electric, Sam Altman from OpenAI, Jensen Huang from NVIDIA, Elon Musk from Tesla, and on and on and on. Like all these big, Alex Karp from Palantir, and they're all signing deals. Boeing signed the biggest deal ever for them, 160 planes. And Trump right now says that the United States of America has inked, from big companies, $10 trillion. There's lots of small stuff that's coming in, like Canfor when they go down to the States, that's not in those numbers. But yeah. $10 trillion of investment into the United States. And that's what's missing in Canada. Unless we unleash our resources, we will not get any of that money.
I was just about to say, that was the magic of the trip. That is right there is what Trump is trying to do. Now, I'll say, like, I don't like the peace and diplomatic kind of edge to this whole thing. I think if it was just a trade exercise, I think it would be a little bit easier for me to handle in terms of knowing some of the background of some of those wars and some of those
conflicts. Yeah.
Conflicts that have occurred over the course of decades. But what I would say is that the one thing that Trump is doing is he's getting American companies, out in front of the world stage. That is exactly what Carney should be doing. Instead of doing interviews with Sky News, he should be taking a whole entourage of Canadian companies that are ready to go in terms of export, except that we're not.
He got FaceTime.
They're so low, and we don't have anything to export, and everything that we do have to export, we just sell to an American company who takes it and runs with it. So, I think that's where the real weakness is. And I think if it's, one thing that we need to wake up to, it's that we don't have those companies. We don't have those ones that are going and starting to, really be on those world stages. And that is that weakened state of the Canadian economy that we've been talking about for the last months.
He got FaceTime for all those people with people with lots of money, and they inked deals. Like that Boeing deal is huge, and Boeing has been kind of a disaster for the last little while, right? Boeing's had a lot of trouble, but that is a huge shot in the arm for Boeing, and the stock reacted to it, obviously. NVIDIA, huge deal for NVIDIA down there, and a lot of people don't even know what Palantir is, but they should know that name because it's a very important name, Alex Karp. Lots of big names there, and Tesla did a bunch of deals down there as well. So Canada should have been begging to go on that trip. Anita Anand, if she wants to be part of like the foreign diplomacy, she should have been on that trip, right? That's where she should have been.
Except that Canada has nothing to actually negotiate with. I mean, the reason that those contracts were done was because of the diplomatic trading that Trump did by lifting sanctions and then signing all of these deals. We're not there. We don't have any strength to that extent. And so Anita can want to go, but until we actually have a government that gets us onto the world stage in that way, we're still dead in the water. And
and I'll stop on this, but I mean the welcoming that he got in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and UAE was like, I haven't seen that ever for, I think that's the first visit of a president to Qatar as well, the first one on that soil. And what he did today for his military, he got on the stage, and when he walked into the airbase there in Qatar, he was like Mick Jagger walking on a stage. And I don't know if they knew ahead of time, but he all promised them a huge raise. And so obviously that's what Canadian troops need too. They need that because they're getting record numbers in the Coast Guard, record numbers in the military. And, we can't get 77,000 people. We got 55,000. We can't get recruitment. we need to look at what they're doing and just say, well, holy cow. Like some of the things to adopt, you want to adopt some of Pierre's policies? No tax on Social Security. There should be no tax on CPP and OAS here in Canada. There should be no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. Those are the kind of things that's for the working class people, and pay our military so they want to join.
Totally. I couldn't agree with you more. I would disagree with you, however, on a couple of things. I don't think he should have accepted the plane.
Yeah, I didn't say you should accept the plane.
I think that was wrong. I think that was wrong.
I think
it does say like you owe us something here. You know, I think it does feel a little bit hinky.
I think at the end of the day that might not happen. I think that might not happen because you know they're talking about they got to tear that thing down to nothing. They might as well start building a new one, right? Because like you can't fly the president of the United States, the most powerful person in the world, around in a plane that could be full of listening devices, right?
Exactly. I was just about to say it would be such a security issue. But the other thing is that he was saluting the foreign military, and that is something that a president should not do. So he needs a better briefing, or maybe just to stay awake for a little bit longer during his briefings.
I don't think he sleeps though. Joe Biden slept almost all the time, and Trump sleeps 4 hours a night, right? He's working like a dog,
And I see that Kenzie Kraken had asked a question about how does Renee know what the ministers are saying other than in the scrum. I read a ton online. I am up all night. I only sleep 4 hours a night, so you can read a lot and watch a lot of videos in that amount of time. So I watched for Gregor Robertson. There was actually an interview that was done on CBC with him that was quite lengthy, and that one was where I was getting some of the other information that I was sharing as well. So that one is publicly available.
And before we get to Eleanor Sturko, I do want to, like we just talked about Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. What's come out in the American media? Jake Tapper's book, I think it was written with Alex. Is it Alex? I can't remember the guy's last name. But they did a book that came out sharing some of the behind the scenes stuff. And, you know, Jake Tapper's pretending like he was innocent and all that. But I mean, Jake Tapper was very vicious with a lot of people when they went after, you know, Biden with what they could see with their eyes and ears. And the media has some responsibility in what they covered up for a couple of years there.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think there was a lot of cover up, a lot of questions that need to be answered, and a lot of danger that occurs because if that president isn't fully functioning, what is actually happening and who is actually
running it? That's the question that needs to be answered. Who was running the country? And again, you know, you could say, like, you know, Canada, if we don't know it, it's not really a world thing, but the United States is clearly the most powerful nation in the world, and it shows with the welcome they got. We're not, if Carney goes to Qatar or Saudi Arabia, and we're not getting that. And what the Americans have is the military might, that there's no question about it, and the U.S. dollar. Those two things make them the force in the world, right? And so that being said.
And the economic generator, all of those companies that you just talked about are part of the success story of the U.S. So I do think that they also have a massive economic generator.
Yeah. No, I mean, let's finish one more. When you say that, like AI, I think we can both agree that AI is one of the most important industries going forward. And if you look at the person in charge of AI in the United States, it's a guy that sold a multi-billion-dollar corporation involved in AI. Evan Solomon was a disgraced CBC journalist, fired for his art dealings with Mark Carney. He's in charge of AI. We have very little AI going on in Canada, other than we want to regulate AI comparatively to what's going on in the United States. And this is who we put in charge of AI.
And it was a really sad day for me on that front, just to see the tepidness and the thinness of what the cabinet that he had to choose from. When he first announced the cabinet, I was looking through the Rolodex. I was looking through, you know, what the backgrounds of each of these individuals were. I think I counted 7 that came from nothing more than political party allegiances. And if I get that number incorrect, forgive me. I don't have it right in front of me. I did do a little spreadsheet of different, fun facts about the cabinet choices. But it was a really, that's disheartening to me that, you know, these people are just in there for, the politics rather than having a real background or a strong background. So I agree. I mean, the strength of what Trump did is that he chose people that were actually from industry, and most of his cabinet picks are that, but most of them are from outside of politics. And whereas we here in Canada choose from inside of politics.
Yeah, and it's a different system there for sure. But if you look at in charge of the border in the United States, in charge of the border, I can pick 3 names, 3 Marines: J.D. Vance, Marine, Tulsi Gabbard, D&D, Marine, and then Pete Hegseth, Marine. Like, those are the people that know the Army, the military, and how to secure something. And then if you look at, like AI and then, Doge and all those things, like those are the top-notch talents. And we need to tap some really strong people here in Canada. But again, our biggest asset is clearly our resources. And we're not, if we don't repeal those 3 things, I don't know where we go in Canada here.
Yeah, I read a great article that was in Harvard Business Review that was talking about why you need entrepreneurs, why you need business, why any economy is pretty much dead in the water without them. And, as I was reading this article, I thought to myself, really, that's what we're lacking here in Canada, is that we're not focused on the businesses. We're not focused on our private sector. We're not focused on, moving things forward. And instead, we've got this bloated government that just keeps growing and growing and growing. And our job numbers last month absolutely prove that. And, we are in a dangerous and precarious situation, and our economists are sounding the alarm bell. They are signaling to us that things have to change. And, I know that Carney came out with his cabinet picks and basically said this is signaling change, and look at all their economic portfolios. I hope that they make some fast moves, and it's not about an $800 tax break, although that will be welcome for a number of families. I hope it is far more than that, because that is a drop in the bucket, and that will only serve to reinforce our issue, not actually propel us forward.
It's a sad testament that what you just said, the $800 means so much to a family. That's a sad testament to where the economy is, that $800 means so much.
But I guarantee that if you offered any family an opportunity for a job that was going to pay them $800 more a year, or the $800 in a tax break, they would take a job that was going to pay them $800 a year and more. And, if you offered them a job that would pay them $8,000 or more a year, I mean, they would take it. So right now, the focus is so on the wrong things, and it's on these cheap gains and political, performance, rather than what's really important to Canada, which is to get our economy moving.
The most disappointing one for me in the cabinet was, in the CTV teased that she wasn't going to be part of cabinet, Chrystia Freeland. She was obviously a failure as finance minister and as deputy prime minister, and she even said it herself that she supported policies she didn't believe in herself. Well, then she shouldn't be running. She shouldn't be carrying that role for Canada. And she's still rewarded. And then she's now the Minister of Transportation, doesn't own a car. And this EV mandate, I don't know how many times I can write that on LinkedIn. Like, drop the EV mandate, or you will have no auto sector to defend. I mean, it is so plain and simple. And Melanie Joly says that, she's got all the heads of Ford and GM and Stellantis, and she's calling them. Are they answering the phone is the real question.
Yeah. And, my hope is, Jim, in all of this, that Canadians are paying attention to politics right now. Mario Canseco came out with the polling numbers that 50% of Canadians are losing sleep over politics right now. I'm hoping that 50% of Canadians are actually thinking about politics and really watching very carefully and watching the performance of our Prime Minister. He's got 12 to 18 months to really make waves. And if he doesn't do things very quickly, I don't think he's going to be around for very long.
Let's move to British Columbia. Let's move to Eleanor Sturko.
Well, and I just want to make sure that, all the watchers understand that there is a real drama going on, and that is that an MLA is being investigated by a provincial agency, basically to try and figure out who her whistleblower was. There are huge issues with this, and we don't have to get into a lot of detail here. I do think that we should be reading Vaughn Palmer's article that came out in the Vancouver Sun. He very, very eloquently describes this and why this is so dangerous. MLAs are protected. They are protected because and when I say we, sorry, in my former role as an MLA, you have to be a free, a person that your constituents can trust with information for you to enact change and for you to know what's going on so that you can be a voice in really making things better. And for government then to turn around and do an investigation, and then for EB to reinforce that investigation and say, no, I'm behind it 100%, I think is a very, very dangerous place, because what it signals to whistleblowers all around the province and all around the country is that it's not safe to do so. And we are going to absolutely lose the ability to hold government accountable if we do not give protections to whistleblowers. So again, they say the NDP says that they're for, this whistleblowing legislation, and they did some things to really strengthen the whistleblowing legislation back 4 years ago or 5 years ago. But this is not proving to be true. So, Eleanor Sturko is probably one of the most effective opposition MLAs right now. She is the one that is driving home the safe supply issues and the diversion of safe supply. She's trying to enact changes to get these drugs off of our streets, and in doing so is now being threatened. So I think that's a really, really dangerous thing. And again, with Bill 7 and Bill 15 that give unrequited power to, EB and Cabinet, I think that we need to be on watch right now. And it's a rare occasion that you get everyone else agreeing against a particular bill, but in this particular situation, we're seeing that. So, just want us to all be aware and to really, write your MLAs, write your MPs if you see things that are being done in this manner and that you want to see changed. Because I do think that we need to have a free voice, and we don't need Bill C-18 federally, and we certainly don't need whistleblowers to be threatened because of doing the right thing and actually drawing attention to things that are going terribly wrong.
Eleanor Sturko doing the hard work for sure, and she's definitely relentless, and that's great to see. One of the other one of the Conservative MLAs, came out, and he was pretty upset that two of the independent MLAs didn't even show up for that vote there. So
it's a disgusting abuse of their position in the Legislative Assembly. For them to say, no, there was just no way I could vote because there's nothing that I could vote for or against is absolutely abysmal. They need to stand up. They need to voice what their constituents want, not what their personal opinion is. And in this particular case, I can tell you very clearly, because one of those MLAs sits in the Kelowna Lake Country Coldstream riding, very clearly what her constituents would want her to vote on, and that is a vote against those that bill. And so for them to stand up and say that there's just no way that they could vote was disgusting. I think they were more concerned about keeping their positions because it was a vote that would have required either the speaker to break the tie, or it was a confidence vote, so the government would have fallen. So an absolute abuse of the respect and the power that has been given by the constituents. Both Dallas Brody and Tara Anderson should be ashamed of being in that position. Armstrong, should be ashamed of being in that position, and should really rethink their roles, because that's just simply not theirs to choose.
that one may come back to haunt them at some point.
It's abysmal, and I mean, honestly, go in and vote one way or the other.
Yeah. Anything else you want to cover off today? I know we've been at it for a bit here.
No, I think it's an exciting time in politics. We've got, here locally, we've got some new faces and cabinet minister for the first time in a long time. So that's really positive. And I do think that, for us, it's a tenuous government federally, it's a tenuous government provincially. So anything can happen at any time.
Yeah, I hope Stephen fears true and gets the Mark Carney's ear and gets Bill C-18 repealed, because I think that is the foundation of a democracy in Canada. Like, the government, media needs to stop taking money from the government, and that's the only way we're going to have a free, independent press here in Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of things to write.
Yes. And thank you for your time. And it's been a great session. We're going to have lots to talk about as we move forward here. There's a lot of stuff going on. We need to figure out, though, how we can use our voices to make sure that our greatest asset, our resource sector, is put into play, because that's what we have, right? That's what we have, and that's what Canadians need to realize. And I think when you and I talk, I think more and more people get to understand that. Because if you're running a corporation, our number one asset, the previous Liberals for the last 10 years refused to sell that asset.
Yeah, that literally is our poker chips.
Wow.
And right now we're not even putting them on the table.
Yeah. Again, thank you for your time, and we do thank you for watching Now Media.